welcome to Begging Rocks TV, where we're going to be exploring all kinds of fascinating topics with amazing people working in the immersive sphere. I'm really excited to have Diana Fairbank as our first person. Diana, you're co-founder over at SIXR, Simulated Immersive Experimental Realities in Seattle, and executive director there. But I know you do so many other things as well. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, yes, so here I am in Seattle, as you see my beloved Space Needle digital art psychedelica. Until I love these kind of colors. Well, and so one of the things I love about VR too is that there's just the ability to transfer art into so many new ways. And one of my artist friends just is getting to try tilt brush this weekend for the first time. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you can't even believe how crazy you're going to go over this. So anyway, sorry, hi, I'm Diana, and I'm my partner Booty Mulio. We run SIXR here in Seattle, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization and whose mission is to bridge the participation gap for emerging technology education, special focus on immersive media education for underrepresented communities. And we partner with the Office of Economic Development in Seattle, which thankfully is visionary enough to understand that immersive media is absolutely a career path. And so we've done a whole bunch of different programs focused in the places that have had no other access to this kind of technology and learning. And one of the other people we partnered with, Refugee Women's Alliance, where last summer I was able to teach 360 video production to 4 Somali refugee teens and have them get to tell their story in 360 video, which was, really empowering and fun for them, but also, very cool, because certainly that's, then they have this polished video to then use to get scholarships or internships or things like that. And so they, that has helped really catapult them. So anyway, we love seeing stuff like that. And we also, in our programs, we use something we call cascade mentoring, which is where students from one cohort come back to mentor the ones in the next one. And all the programs that we do are paid internships. So the students are getting paid to learn, but then they have the opportunity to come back and get paid by SIXR to help teach the next bunch. And XR ecosystem in the southeast part of Seattle. And another really big thing that happened was recently a big group called Africa Town just got awarded an old fire station to use as a center for innovation. And so SIXR will be doing the immersive media programming there. And that is just brand new news. I mean, that just happened. And that, when we got invited to be on the advisory board for how they're going to start getting these programs. I mean, even in COVID, we can't do stuff in person yet, but we're definitely going to be advising on when they can and do as much as we can still remotely. But this is just a big thing. And when I was on this advisory board call, it was just, I was practically in tears, like, it's about time we had some good news out there in the world. And so this is really great news for Seattle and the community that we serve.
Amazing. And what an amazing introduction to all of these different extraordinary things that you do and that you start and initiate and then partner with other people on. I'll just mention, so we're going to do this in sort of 3 segments. So we're going to focus first on kind of who you are and what you do. Then we'll talk a little bit about how you got to where you are and in doing the stuff that you do love to do. And then a little more just about your worldview and your passions and where you're kind of headed. What are the things that you're wanting to focus on now? So many amazing things that you were just talking about there. I'd love to know what drives you to be working on the kinds of projects that you are, because you're clearly so passionate about the ones that you choose to work on.
Well, I guess to go just a little back on my histories, I come from the filmmaking world and the theater world, and but all while I feel like my whole life I had this one art track going after college when I started working in video production and film and then and audio production. So I always had kind of an art and tech track going parallel. And any chance I had to have them meet in any way was always really exciting. But when VR, so in Seattle, we had in our fantastic Seattle International Film Festival in 2016, they had something called Stiff X, which was the 4-day festival within a festival where it was just all the state of the art of VR at that point, like the panel discussions with all like the founding pioneer people and all the latest 360 video and VR experiences that were available at that time. And I already knew that I was really excited about that coming, but after being there, I mean, my partner Booty and I were already had the idea of that well, we spent 4 days straight just absorbing absolutely everything, and my world was for sure transformed. And the first night there was a meetup for filmmakers, and I was sitting in this room with this amazing bunch of people, and it was like the first time too that my art and tech world, I mean that my film and tech worlds were meeting as well. And this one woman walked up to me and she saw my little badge and she goes, "You're Diana Fairbank? Oh my gosh, somebody said I had to meet you, that you're a badass rock star." And I'm like, who thinks that? Who's like even paying attention to what I'm doing? It was, that was very, very fun. And, but also I felt like I realized with VR that without realizing it, I'd been preparing for it my whole life. And that suddenly in VR, every single thing that I do is valuable in VR. And to have an epiphany like that at my age was just one of the most delicious experiences ever. And I have been just on an absolute rocket ship ride ever since. And I have never looked back doing, I'm only interested in forwarding this tech and this art meeting tech. And to me, that where art meets tech has always been the most thrilling place to be, but it's never had a forum or a new medium of expression like this. So yeah, I'm I say I'm in a constant state of elation.
Yeah. And for you, in all of this work that you're doing, where do you feel like, what are your sort of superpowers, and what is it that you most like to do with them in the projects that you do?
Well, I feel for VR, one of my superpowers for specifically for VR is that I have a deep theater background, and to work in immersive media, to be able to act and direct and write for that environment, to come from a theater background helps so much, because to me, I explain it, and I guess most theater people have this kind of intrinsic understanding in a way that if you've only worked in front of a camera for flatty film, you just wouldn't know. And that is that working in 360 or in motion capture, it's like black box theater. It's like theater in the round. It's like instead of the audience being all around you, you're all around it. So it's like theater in the round inverted, and it's like, okay, cool, down the rabbit hole, love that. So so part of me just already has this ability to think and like VR. And so one of my most major passion projects as a filmmaker that I've been working on was something that I described or originally envisioned as an epic mini series type thing. But the minute I started working in VR, immediately reimagining it for VR, because it's set in 5th century BC Athens, and of stuff you could do with VR. I mean, it's by far the optimal way that I could possibly tell the story. And it helps comfort me that it's taken so long to figure out how to get this story told. But I think it was because it was waiting for this optimal format and for me to have the chance to really explore it. And so everything with my theater background, I believe, just helps me, I just move in this world really naturally in my mind. That's all I could say. So that's part of the superpower.
No, that's great. And what are the kind of folks that you like to work with? What are the things that are the hallmarks of the people that you decide these are the people who I'd like to kind of play with and work with?
Anybody who just like is just, I mean, it's so funny here in Seattle too. So one of the origins of Stixar, this helps explain like who we like to work with and how it even evolved, is that so right after that SIFX, that 4-day festival, a week later, we rode the wave of fresh interest by doing this 48-hour cinematic VR challenge with borrowed 360 cameras, and 30 people came together with incredibly diverse backgrounds, pitched ideas, formed teams, and over the course 48 hours made some sort of 360 video, but there are also people working in Unity, so it was several different types of things, and it was the most fun any of us had ever had, and every single person in that room had the same kind of burning excitement about a passion for trying this new thing, and the excitement about that we all realized that we're at the dawn of this moment where not only was VR at the level to be for widespread usage as entertainment or play, or other, it was ready to be created for. And smartphones also made that possible, that everybody had like a little VR machine in their pocket that we could use with cardboards and things like that. And yeah, that's primitive, but that's the way a lot of people tried VR for the first time. And for years, back when I used to go out and about, I would always have a cardboard with me and ones to give away. And so I turned on lots of people like that. But so what came to me is that, so it's lovely and fascinating about all the different places people come from to end up in VR. And so the people that we most like to work with are the ones who are just as excited as we are, and like there's like this kind of vibe that I just don't, like, we all recognize it in each other. And I guess it's like any other vibrational tribe. I mean, it's like we are just all so, and just that common fact, plus the fact that we're bringing so many other different experiences to the table. I mean, it just makes it the most rich and creative environment that I've ever worked in. And so doing those 48-hour challenges, we've done 6 of those by now. So Booty and I feel like we've done a lot to actually also help, and those are open to anybody. And so we've helped create like an extended family ecosystem kind of feeling within Seattle. And there's people who've been at every single one of our VR challenges. And there's people who've flown across the country and dropped everything to be there because they heard us talk about it on AltSpace. I mean, so there's certain people who, I mean, we don't have to convince them. They're just like, so those are the people that we love to work with. And I definitely, in our podcast, we like to focus, the whole point of our podcast called The Journey is talking about the wild and woolly and weird places people come from to end up here.
That's wonderful. And I mean, it's neat because you talk about how, you can have people from AltSpace and from all over, that it's very non-local in terms of who you can work with. But you've also talked a little bit about sort of that Seattle scene and about some of the things that are specific to its flavor. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the Seattle VR scene is like that you're a part of?
Well, yes, I feel, again, everything really started from 2016. That's almost everybody around here's like day 0 or whatever. And we were lucky enough to be invited to join CoMotion Labs at UW, which was their VR incubator. And that opened in August of 2016. So we were the original, we were OG at CoMotion Labs. And that was incredibly huge blessing because there's so many different types of VR applications being worked on and demoed, and And then plus, of course, Elizabeth Scallon, who ran it, it was just one of the most amazing human beings ever. Made sure that there was lots of different events, and so there was another, besides the extended, more kind of social family we are creating in our VR challenges, where, I mean, they're basically adult slumber parties for adult geek having slumber parties. um, but then here we had the more professional version of that, where we were deeply, you know, in part of that scene, and like, but also we were the only ones who chose to go the nonprofit route. So after a year and a half, Elizabeth said, I can't take your money anymore. I want you to go, you know, you got to go find a way out there, because, you know, incubators are meant to be for people who are making money. And not like that we're against that, but, you know, the nonprofit model just made a lot more sense for us. And also, I don't know how we could have, any other business we could have started on just a complete win with like nothing but borrowed equipment. You know, I mean, that's what we started with this almost 5 years ago. We're at 4.5 years now. So, and then now I'd say it has evolved in so many different cool ways. So CoMotion Labs lasted for about 2.5 years, and now it's closed down. But and COVID has certainly, you know, messed up our ability to have like more of a social world around it. But the people who are, I mean, we're always watching what each other are doing and helping support, you know, each other's projects wherever possible. And also, it is a blessing. The smallest silver lining of COVID is, I think it's really sped up the adoption of VR for even social VR or meetings in VR in a way that would have probably taken a couple of years more without it.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And it's fun when you talk about kind of the people that you like to work with and the excitement part with them. I mean, I certainly remember from the first time of getting to meet you in person, and just everybody who was there, it being that thing of people just being so excited to talk about what it was that they were working on and what was up and what was going on, and just that level of wonder and engagement with wonder is amazing. I'd love to hear more. It really is unique, that choice as this burgeoning group working in the way that you are to go in the nonprofit route. I'd love to hear more about that decision. And was that something that was just natural, or was there a certain moment where you decided, no, this is the direction we need to go in?
Before we even did our first VR challenge, I already had it's in my head that this is a nonprofit, and partly because it's the underlying purpose of it is education, and but also because we're not like trying to create a product, you know, or, you know, was just so it just felt more like that made sense. But also, that is part of my background, is because I came from a family where both of my parents served on different boards of directors of things, and it was just kind of ingrained in me. And I've been on the board of one arts organization or another since I was 20. So I guess it just made sense that, and then other than that, I've run my own production company and just been an independent contractor, um, you know, in my own professional realm. So I, it just made sense. And then plus we knew that we'd be able to get grants for what we were doing. I mean, that the need was great for what we were going to be teaching, but we also jumped in it as that we're from that first VR challenge, we're going, we just want to learn, so let's all learn together and let's pool resources. And that's also how, you know, we had enough people who believed in us and thought what we were doing was cool, that we had, you know, solid sponsorships that have kept us going with things from equipment from Oculus, and a lot of support from them in the beginning. And right now I'm still working with an Oculus Rift that was lent to us about 3 years ago. And then Altspace VR has also been a sponsor. They sponsored one of our VR challenges, and we did some of our promotional interviews about that, you know, to different things. And that actually is one of the ways that we ended up getting people to like fly in from out of town. And oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right. Well, maybe we'll take a pause there. I love what you're saying there also about just what a collaborative environment, like set of people that it is, that there's a lot of support for the people who are diving in the way that you have.
Right. And love the sharing, the skill sharing, and like just this whole sense of of I don't know. Okay, say it's like we're storming the castle that we're building together. That there's no, there's nothing in preventing us from doing that. So
That's wonderful. So we'll take a brief moment, and we'll jump in again. So again, we're shifting. This would be for segment 2. So again, our guest is Diana Fairbank, co-founder and executive director at SIXAR. And in this segment, we'll talk a little bit more about sort of your journey into what you're doing now, and what that's been like. A question that is popping to mind for me is, what are some of the strands that you find from like your youngest times? What are some of the strands in terms of your areas of interest and what it is you've been focused on that you notice looking back?
Okay. Well, when you put it that way, well, again, it's sort of goes back again to this idea of always wanting to be in the forefront of tech, but also have the deep love of art and just loving where, seeing where that nexus takes us. And I remember I was involved in theater from the time I could talk. I was a singer, dancer, actress, and writer and director and all of that stuff. And but I also often would ask my dad, please take me to the Push Button Museum, which was the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. And I was totally fascinated with all the stuff that would happen when you push the button. And so I guess there's some little stream of that, but then also digital art. So I went to college. When I went to college was the very last time that people didn't really have personal computers. I mean, I was like the last wave of that. But I also feel so sad for people in college now. Like I could never have done my college online. It was all theater and dancing and music, and well, not all, but they're just like, oh, you're so robbed well, what about like even science? I mean, I love being in the labs. I mean, all that stuff that you can't have online. But anyway, my point being is that when I was in college, I couldn't understand or see like how theater and computers would ever have anything to do with each other. So I just really didn't have much interest in going down that path at that time, which was very early 80s. Then by the late 80s, so I have to throw in this one thing in there. So I was in theater through the age of 25, and I lived in Europe and just done a whole bunch of different things in theater. And Ben was back in my hometown of Chicago and was just starting to explore film, which is there were just starting to be a bunch of films made in Chicago. But at that time, the problem was that they were big productions that had already been cast. So when they came to town, all that was left for Chicago actors were crumbs. So there were like 2 big agents in town, and my agent and everybody's agents was saying, you have to go to LA or New York to get into a movie in your own city. And so while I was trying to decide which of those places was the lesser of the evils, I didn't really want to live either one of those places. And I just come back from living in Paris, I mean, anyway, I right at that time, that wasn't a very exciting choice for me. But right before I had to make the decision, it was kind of taken out of my hands when on New Year's Eve, 86, turning into 87, I was in a city bus hit by a truck, and my neck was broken at C1 and C2. And so in a split second, the life that was well underway and had been planned for and trained for and all was like suddenly just all up in the air. And it took me about a year to recover. And by the time I did, for various reasons, I decided I just really wanted to and writing and producing, and I got an opportunity to go work at the Telluride Film Festival. And so I just jumped at that, and I love Telluride. I'd been there before. It's this gorgeous mountain town, and has a world-class film festival. And so when I was there, I also got to work on jazz festival, bluegrass festival, and I learned a whole bunch of, and I got to be on boards of other things. I immediately was appointed and joined boards. And so I learned about grant writing and, all the stuff about the back end of nonprofits. And so I guess that's part of where that, DNA for 6R was laid. And because I did that for 2 years, and then by then I really needed to be back in a city, and by then I needed a city that had mountains and water and trees and culture, and this is it. This is the only one I knew of, and luckily my 2 older brothers had already moved here, and so that made it pretty easy for me to just come here sight unseen, and I just fell in love with it, and that was 28 years ago. And I've been working in video production and I'm screenwriting, and I wrote screenplay adaptations of novels for other people. I did a whole bunch of different writer producer stuff for video production companies. And then I had a period of time where my parents decided to move out here and were both really ill, and I ended up having to take a bit of so I had one detour with my broken neck, and then I had another detour with taking care of my parents. And during that time, doing that, I taught myself web development. And I was excited because, when I first moved here, I lived with a great friend who now works at Microsoft, who taught me and gave me my first computer. And I took to it just so amazingly easily. So I mean, what was I waiting for? Well, because I couldn't figure out how it had anything to do with theater back when that was what I was doing. And so that now I was excited that because it was the dawning of the World Wide Web, and it was when you could make things pretty with it. Because when I first started doing computers, it was still like the little tape with holes in it. I just did not get any kind of thrill out of that. And so now I could do stuff with graphics. And so I got loving graphics. And so I went to school for digital art. I went to learn all about, Photoshop and Illustrator. And then that was at the dawning of web development. So then I shifted into that too. But like this, this picture, I'm a photographer, and then I do trippy digital art stuff, my photography, and I mostly do landscapes. And so I have a lot of stuff of Mount Rainier and of the Space Needle. But so then fast forward to 2007, 2007, 2008, I got invited to curate a film festival, the animation for a film festival here in the town where I live, which is a city called Maple Valley, and it's about 30 miles southeast of Seattle, and it's a very artist-friendly city, and we have a really great arts council, and I was also spent many years on that board and also helped deal with this art festival. But then after I did this, curated the animation for this festival in 2006, I was like loving the state of animation, and I started to just go look more into it. And then I created something called the 3D Animation and Digital Art Expo. And that was something that we did as like another mini festival within a festival at the Maple Valley Creative Arts Council's annual Arts Fest, which happens at this beautiful Lake Wilderness Lodge here in Maple Valley, with a picture postcard view of Mount Rainier. And so I did 3 editions of the 3D Animation and Digital Art Expo, where I found people local who were working in these fields. And then but I even had a seed of 6R in that, because it was to showcase this work, but also as entertainment. But then also we invited the creators to give little demonstrations and, give like mini classes of how I did this, and talk about how, because it was really aimed toward high school students who might want to follow into that track, and to say, here are working professionals in digital art. And so another part of the seeds of 6R were in that. And so I did 3 versions of that, and that just helped keep me propelling me forward into the art meets tech thing, but we're pre-VR. So I guess I came to a little bit, and well, I was very into 3D animation, and so I was, but then I looked into Second Life, and so Second Life was kind of fun, but I mean, it still wasn't it for me. And and it wasn't until I got to VR that day at SIFX that all of a sudden, like, okay, yeah, this is it for me. And so that's how all of that came together, and all my different strands of background meet in VR.
Yeah, it's amazing seeing how those pieces that there's no way previously to have known how they would link and just intertwine so perfectly into what you're doing now. It's amazing. You talk about that piece about the educational side being so important and about kind of your own beginnings. If you were going to be giving either your younger self or someone who's getting started now in this field some advice, what would you tell them?
Do it. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, do it. Find a way to do it, however, whatever it takes. And then the second thing that I would say that has been, horribly brought home to me during this COVID time is save money. Start investing young. That's what that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. You talked a bit about some of sort of the different highs and the lows that have been there along the way on your journey. What have been a couple of the other pieces for you that have been really pivotal in shaping how you work now, the kind of things you work on, the projects you take on, and such? What's
Oh,
helped
you've
you?
gone mute. I can't hear you.
Oh, let's try again. I was just saying, can you hear me now?
I
No, can you
can't
hear
hear
me?
you.
Oh no.
Now
Oh,
you're back. Now you're
okay,
back.
great. Perfect. Yeah, so I was just saying, you've talked a bit about some of the highs and the lows along your way. Um, what would you say have been some of the any other sort of pivotal either experiences or organizations or people that have helped shape for you how you do your work now?
Oh, huge. Okay, well, there's definitely a lot of things that have come along the way, and that's another beautiful thing about getting to be in this city where I really feel like we're just so blessed to have so many people who are doing this work. But we met the Ander Bergstrom and CJ Markham from MoCap Now, which is a motion capture studio, and they, I'd say, are the most pivotal people that we've been working with, and especially for me personally, because my passion project I was talking about earlier, the epic mini series, well, that is to be done in motion capture. And luckily, when I explained to them what I wanted to do, they were totally psyched. And so Ander and CJ are just amazing people who, well, now their company MoCap Now, they're the premier motion capture studio here in Seattle. I can't even tell you about the projects that they work on because they can't tell me, because everything they do is NDA. But they have been incredibly kind and generous in, like, they've offered up their studio, and they have taught our students when we do these 48-hour VR challenges. 4 of the last 6, we were able to have motion capture be an element that people could add. And I mean, that is pretty, that's a pretty incredible entree for, just a weekend jam thing. So, there are a lot of people that was huge for, to see what the possibilities really are. And that just, they've been really so kind and generous to us, to, like, they let me have parties there. We had booties because their studio is huge. And also I've gotten to do motion capture myself, but I'm planning to do a big project with them. And so they're the two I mean, meeting them was like a huge thing for 6R. And just for our future collaborations, because even though we are an educational nonprofit, we also are content creators. We still want to make things. And so we've created the way, somehow we have a lawyer who was smart enough to kind of figure out a way that we can have our nonprofit for our educational programs. But if we happen to create something that can go out in the market with anything, any other VR experience or app, well, then we have a way to do that. That's like a separate track. So if we can have a for-profit arm. So, which of course, you know, nobody's going to want to invest. They're here. We have to be in the for-profit world, and that's fine because, you know, definitely nothing against making profits.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I'd love to talk about later. I'm going to ask you some more questions and see if you can tell us a little bit more about the project that you've been mentioning a little. I was going to ask a little about your recent Burning Man project as well, because you had an interesting thing you were doing at the last Burning Man.
oh, right. So I've never gotten to go to Burning Man in real life yet, but I've been to many other festivals like up here that are similar. But I met through mutual friends from this festival world, a guy who oh no, it was you, Daniel. Somehow you met Bill, this man named Bill Ratcliffe, and he knew Daniel somehow. I guess I forgot how you guys knew each other, but this is one of the times where somebody said to Daniel, you you have to meet Diana, and then now Daniel said to somebody else, you have to meet. I feel really grateful that, you know, I made this friend thanks to another friend directing me to Daniel, and now Daniel directed me, and this gentleman Bill had an idea for a VR piece, and somehow he told Daniel about, and then Daniel steered him to me, and with 3 weeks to deadline, or a little less even, more like 2.5 weeks, he asked me if I would do a Burning Man shrine art gallery. And that, so Bill had been to many, many Burning Man before, and he had set up these, what he called art shrines, which were basically just little lean-tos in the desert that had nothing in them but a notebook and a pen. And so all kinds of people over the course of a week would wander through and draw pictures or write stuff, and there's some pretty amazing stuff. And, you know, he gave me one notebook that he had scanned all the pictures from, and well, the pictures and text. And so I created a walk-through art gallery of that notebook. And so I did the best you know, it was fairly bare bones, but as best we could in a very short time we had. And I was just really excited to get to be in Burning Man. And I guess I was in several places, but for sure, I know I was in a place called Sparkleverse, or we were, excuse me, it's Bill, Bill and me. So, but then he had 10 notebooks and we just did one. So now we're going to be, I guess we're going to create a Patreon or something to help finish it. So it's like a 10-year, to put 10 years worth. And so it'll be a multi-level museum, and I'm going to make each year like a different, I don't know, definitely a different look, if not a specific theme. But I mean, I'm excited to do that. So
Oh, that's
that's a
amazing.
project that will continue on. And hopefully will be a full-blown VR experience that can be then, you know, that people will be able to get online.
Yeah, when it's, as soon as the Patreon link is ready, we'll put it into the description for this video as well. That's exciting, and I hadn't realized that was the origins of that project. That's really fun.
Well, and it was really, I mean, it was really touching too to see what some of the people wrote. You know, it says, and also I think how fun for the people who actually wrote this, you know, forgot about it years ago, and to have them like stumble across their little doodle or something. You know, I think that's just really, really cool.
Yeah, that's super neat. We'll take just a moment again, just a pause between segments for a sec. And then we'll start on segment 3. So again, welcome back. If you're coming to our third installment, our guest is Diana Fairbank, Executive Director and Co-founder at 6R. And in this segment, we're going to be talking a little bit more about kind of your passions and your worldview, and what are the things that sort of drive you into the stuff that you like to do and that you're interested in. Maybe a starting place is, we've talked a little bit about how crazy the current times are and how much they're changing everything. It's a really interesting time and place to be. What does it look like from where you sit? And what do you think are some of the kind of important themes or things that we should be drawing out of our experience during this wild time that 2020 is turning out to be?
Well, no doubt about it. There's never been a year like this ever. And I'm definitely keeping a kind of a COVID diary about, because this is also as a writer. Well, I am about to publish my first book that's actually quite delayed, but many years worth of essays and some memoirs, and most of it is related to metaphysical experiences. But also, I'm really interested in social justice, and so I have a lot of stuff I've been reflecting on in this, as I've been watching this insane bunch of, been more than just 2020, but it's certainly come up to this crescendo of horrors that no one could have. I mean, again, people keep saying if a screenwriter wrote this, they would get turned back for being so ridiculous and implausible, or to have a villain as like as mustache twirling as the one that we have, you know. So I mean, when real life is more absurd than the best satire, it's it's time to go to a new level with that. So I've been thinking on that a lot, and well, and just reflecting the sadness of in some ways in social justice. I mean, I thought we had come a lot further than we actually have, but nobody needs to tell me and Booty that Black Lives Matter. I mean, we already get that, and we live that every day with the programs that we do, and those are exactly that's the community that we're working really hard to, and where we're putting all of our focus and resources. Um, that's to me is really, really important, because immersive media, I believe, is absolutely the future of everything. It's not just going to be entertainment. It will be education. It will be medicine. I mean, 5G is going to make it possible for surgeons to be in an operating room around the world and operating robotic hands. So, we are in another world now, and that needs to be, the people who are going to build it are the developers and the programmers who are going to know Unity and Unreal and Engine and other, anything else that is building the basis of these systems. And so that's one of the reasons we're so excited to be teaching Unity, because, and also as I'm continuing to learn it, because my background came, as like I said, came from filmmaking, and I've spent 4 years straight shooting 360 video, walking around, like, I mean, so many things, so many festivals. I mean, the things that I love to shoot in 360 video have been all kinds of things like that. But now this whole year of not even being basically able to go almost anywhere, I've turned my focus into the learning of Unity too, and I just see how incredibly valuable it is for almost any way iteration this is going to take, because VR is going to be, I believe, and this is, people who've been thinking on this a lot longer than I have, like my introductory thinker was Jaron Lanier, and I believe that he's also the one who has said that this is going to be like a second, as incredibly impactful as the internet was, and the wide scale adoption of it, that VR is going to be like a second level of that. That the wave of what VR is going to make possible, and how pervasive it will become in everyday part of everyday life. The time to, the people who are getting in to prepare for that now are still at the dawn of this. And so I'm just really encouraging of that, but also the power of being able to use this for things like social justice, but I mean, making more documentaries. I mean, getting people, there's so much proof that being immersed in, if you're watching something in 360 video and you're experiencing what somebody else felt like being a child cowering under a bed while you're being bombed in Syria, or, just there's so many different, or they've shown things like with domestic violence victims, if they put the perpetrators in VR and show what it's like in immersively, to have someone come at you like that. I mean, suddenly the fact of the empathy machine, I mean, there really is no other, you can put yourself in someone else's shoes truly in a way that has never been possible before. And I really believe that as far as what that impact that's going to have on social justice, and just like just common humanity, decency to each other. I have to believe that's going to help break down the barriers and just help aid in our ability to connect in new ways. And like that to me is probably the single most important thing, because I say now too that like anything that happens in VR or online, the most powerful things are when the experiences that people are having online or in VR um, motivate them to do something in real life. You know, so to me that's where the power is, because we're not, as much as VR is going to be a major tool, we still are going to do human to human interaction. And I can't help but think that that is going to be a gigantic barrier breaker. And I just, it's already feels like it's paving that way. I mean, it feels just also among the people who I know who work in this, and when we do these gatherings, or the people who show up who are just as excited as we are, um, that they all that they're all having the same kind of understanding that this is something really transformative, because the level of energy and excitement about what people are doing, I've never seen it, even in the film world, where that used to be where I measured, you know, well, somewhat in the tech world. But anyway, just that level of passion, and also just, there's so many people, like when I did my first 360 video, I mean, I came out in tears, and it wasn't anything sad. It was just because it was so moving. It was so, that feeling of presence had been so achieved, and that empathy transfer, you know, all of that. I mean, I totally got it 100% in the first try. And I don't really quite understand people who don't. And one time we were at there was a Immerse VR, which was like the one and only trade show kind of thing we've had here. It was in Bellevue, I think in 2017. And I remember after being at that, I was in the elevator going down, and there's like three people just kind of shaking their heads going, I don't get it. And I remember I was like, it took everything in my, and here I have my 360 camera. Too bad it wasn't on, but I remember just thinking, I feel so sorry for you.
Yeah. One of the things that I want to really highlight that you've talked about, and it is such a focus and such a passion, and you put so much skill and energy into, is that piece around representation. And as you say, like, this is a year where we're realizing more and more how important that piece of representation is, and it's tumultuous in the industry in terms of where that is and where it isn't. What do you feel like we need to be doing? I mean, as an industry, what do we need to be doing next to really make sure that that representation is there? And you've talked eloquently about why it matters, but if you have anything else you want to say around that, then definitely feel free.
Well, why it matters too. Well, wow. Okay, let me back that up to what needs to be done. I mean, in a way, I don't know whether Canada, whether you have a similar system. I think you probably are better about this as far as public funding for the arts. But you know, in this country, it's been abysmal for a long time. And I remember when I lived in Europe being like, I couldn't believe it. Every single person I knew who was in theater and film were making a decent living. You know, and because it was all, there was government funding for everything. And it wasn't weird that, you know, it's weird the way that we have to scramble and do this insane contortions to try to be artists. I mean, it's just criminal that that's not valued more. So all I know from my end, and what I'm trying to shout to the rooftops, from the rooftops, is to the philanthropies, that this is a very important sector. This is a very important place to be putting money. And also, one of the things I love to tell our students too is that still less than 2% or something of people, humans walking around on the planet, who have ever experienced any sort of VR. And so that means who know how to make it, that's still too small to be statistically quantifiable. So that's really exciting. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who get off on the idea that you're doing something that no one else has done. And well, I'd say that's a big part of it for me too. I'm absolutely in that pioneering spirit. I'm not interested in, I just don't even look back. I swear I never even think about flatty film anymore. It just like, why? So I'm sorry for anybody who's still doing that, but maybe just for me, I don't see the point in it. I mean, all my visions are around doing everything in VR now, and I'm just thrilled about that. I mean,
So
I definitely think that it's there's going to be so many more opportunities for filmmakers, and Andrew and CJ, who I mentioned from MoCap now, these guys both have their own Oscars already for digital. So Oscars for VR are coming, and you bet I want to be at that level.
going from the current wave of innovation back a couple of thousand years in terms of other people doing innovation, could you tell us a little bit more about Aspasio? I don't know what you're allowed or want to say at this stage, but I'd love to hear more about that project.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Well, I just this is my passion project that I've been working on for ages, and being named Diana, I was given books on Greek and Roman mythology from earliest childhood, and I was a very early reader and a voracious one at that. And the Greek and Roman myths those were my fairy tales, and then I just kept, I mean, I kept reading on that, and I kept getting bigger coffee table books, and of the art and everything. And so I mean, I've just have always been the most fascinated with that period of history. And then when I was a teenager, when I was like 17, I became way into philosophy. I just realized that was my passion at that time. And I had a teacher who was so lovely at the boarding school I went to, Emma Willard School, shout out, fabulous school. And one of the best teachers I ever had, I told him I was interested in doing that, and he created a class for it, which is still there. And it was a kind of school where if you said, I want to study philosophy, they're going to find a way to help you do that. And so when I was reading the Plato's dialogues, there's a mention of Aspasia as the only woman who was allowed to be in these symposia. And I was just like, that perked me up. I'm like, well, what about that? What's up with that? So I knew of her from then, and then I guess I kept thinking about her over the years. And there's a Masterpiece Theater from the 70s. Okay, you guys, I know we're talking like, ancient history here, but like there's ancient history of the ancient history. There was a Masterpiece Theater in the 70s called I, Claudius, which was this epic, fabulous 12-part series of the Caesars, the last of the Caesars. And I, Claudius was the second to last. And it's his, from the time he's a child till the time of his death, watching this whole insane history unfold. And it's really, really crazy, juicy history. And like, well, very, let's just say very, there's just lots of action, lots of things going on, and it's just really beautifully done. And so one time I watched it every few years or so. It was something I really bonded with my dad over. And then like somewhere in the early 90s, I watched it with a boyfriend, and then somehow I started telling him about Aspasia. And then while we were watching I, Claudius, I suddenly went, oh my gosh, they have so much in common. Aspasia was an outsider turned insider power player, just like I, Claudius. And so Aspasia, for those of you who don't know, was the best friend and muse of Socrates, the wife and main speechwriter for Pericles, a philosopher in her own right, and the founder of the art of rhetoric before that got turned into something heinous. Anyway, so everybody knows who Socrates was. Most people know who Pericles was, but it seems like only a very small, I mean, almost nobody I've ever mentioned this to has ever known who she was, except people from Greece. So this is 5th century BC Athens through the story of Aspasia, who was a real power player. And it's just insane that everybody doesn't know who she is just as much as they know who Socrates and Pericles are. Because if she didn't exist, I really doubt that they would be as famous. I'm not kidding. And they give her that credit too, although the historians were like, so woman. So anyway, I am wanting to tell her story, and the story, it's an amazing love story and friendship between those three people, Socrates, Pericles, and Aspasia. And this is also just at to me, the most fascinating period of history besides the one we're living through. And that's, it was the flowering of philosophy and politics and theater and all of the arts. And so to be in the middle of that, I mean, I feel like how I feel now in Seattle had to be somewhat similar to how they felt then. And that's just a happy accident right now. I mean, because I've been working on this for like, in a way, my whole life, but like focused on it, writing screenplay. I started that about 10 years ago, and I won a scholarship to the film school in Seattle, which is a school just for screenwriters. It was basically on the idea that until you have a great story, that cameras are irrelevant. And so I had awesome teachers helping me shape this very unwieldy idea and help me boil it down to like, well, how can I present it in a way that then would like be like a pilot version of something that then would allow me to do the full epic story, because I want to cover approximately 12 years. And anyway, so when I started working in VR, I immediately realized that I could do this in motion capture. Well, I first did motion capture, and then I started evolving the idea of how I would do that. And since I have a theater, Shakespearean theater background, as well as my Andrew Bergstrom, who I've mentioned from MoCap now, he also has a theater background. And so he is going to play my Socrates. I incredibly get to play my Aspasia, who is 35 in the story, but in VR, you could be any age. This is like this amazing thing for actors of all ages, because it'll be my motions, my voice, even my face, but I'll still have a skin of a 35-year-old Greek woman on me. So, well, actually, she was from uh, Miletus, an island called Miletus, which is off the coast of Turkey. So she's actually Turkish. But anyway, so this past August, I got to go to a online virtual summer school intensive in Amsterdam. That's the VRTL Academy, and it's for teaching VR of all kinds of, we could take spatial audio, and probably gonna do that next. But it was just really to help shape a pitch deck for a VR experience with professionals who have successfully done that, and then also people who are on the lookout for this kind of material. So it was a really amazing opportunity. And so with their feedback, I was able to now shape this pitch deck that I am happy to put out into the world. Daniel, I am happy to share it now. And we're just starting really the fundraising process for it. And so that's where that stands. But what we're trying to do though is what was called a vertical slice, which will just be like a 3-minute, just one scene. And so we've got the scene, I've got all the things I need in place, the whole team of people who will work on this. But now all we need is the funding. So that's where I am with that now. And hopefully, knock on wood, I'm gonna just start putting that out there. I just put it up on my Patreon yesterday. So just
So
that
exciting.
phase begins. But the second we can do that, we're like ready to go. I mean, I feel like I've been ready to do this for a while now, but now I know, like, as well as I had the idea developed so that I could explain it to the people at MoCap, now I did not have it well enough to explain to potential investors. So, obviously there's lots of parts involved in this kind of stuff, but I'm very excited to get into this realm. And I'm very happy to say that the feedback I got from the the panel at the end of that program was really positive. And one lady called this an amazing find, which just made me very happy. But she did ask me, why haven't you done this? Like, why wouldn't you have done this marvelous idea sooner in the old, in the Flatty film way? And I was just like, because that's another reason. It's like, I don't want to do what's already been done. She's like, this could be the Game of Thrones of VR. And I'm like, I agree, but why would I want to try to top the Game of Thrones? That's the Game of Thrones. I want to go do something that's never been done before, like do something like this that's that fabulous in VR. So that's why. Well, and also because of the layers of interactivity we'll be able to do. And the thing that a lot of people have responded to, and this was something that one of my colleagues or fellow students told me, or gave me this idea at the during the course, is that the viewer is an owl. You are Aspasia's magical pet owl, which explains why you get to be with her all the time.
I love it. It's amazing. I can't wait, and I'm so excited that that the pitch deck is ready to go out. We can link to the details on that. It's such an extraordinary project. I can't wait to see more about that. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. If you're willing, we'll give a little bit of time for sort of Q&A if any folks have any questions that they'd like to ask you. And at some point, I'm looking forward to us having a conversation on the intertwinings of metaphysical experience and virtual reality development.
Ooh, because I'm working on one of those, an app for that too.
Excellent. So yeah, I'll open things up. If anybody wants to ask any questions now, feel free. Hey, Michelle.
I always wonder questions about sort of you at home life practice, how you sort of manifest the person you are into this creative impulse into the world. So yeah, I guess my question is just more, what does a day look like for you? What brings this sparkle of you into the world when you wake up and go to bed and in between? Yeah.
Wow, that's such a really fabulous question. Wow. Well, getting to work, wake up and work on this stuff. Yeah, I have. I definitely. Well, COVID has been. Things have changed since COVID. So a day in the life for me is, I really is important to me to mark each day and to keep some kind of a routine going. And I still have to do that because I do still have to pretend to be professional in the world for running 6R. But I've been involved with a meditation group for many, many years. And I've also, back when I first was learning that all about the Greek gods and goddesses, well, I also was right after that given a book on astrology when I was like 5. And since I already understood what the nature and characteristics of the gods and goddesses, I had this weird osmosis understanding of astrology. And so I am interested in all kinds of things like that. And I do, actually, that is one of my hats on the side, is I do astrology, numerology, runes, tarot. And so I work in those realms and I think in those realms, and I have, I've always had lots of visions and I can envision things very vividly. And so I do have a meditation practice that is, but as I've done it for so many years, I feel like I'm almost at the point where I'm in a constant state of meditation. And it's like every in-breath meditation, every out-breath prayer, every in-breath. So there's times during the day where, especially if I get kind of overwhelmed, I can just center with that and just breathe for a minute. But I've always seemed like there's never enough time in the day. Like I don't have no concept of boredom. Like I don't understand that at all. Like there's just never, I remember being little and my mom saying, only boring people get bored. And I mean, I was just like, that's right. Well, she didn't say it to me. She said it to my brother because I had no problems in this area. So it's just like, feel like there's never enough time. And so I've been trying to do being a little more um, good about doing what I guess you call mind maps. So I get so every like couple of weeks or so, I'll just do like I have this special pad of paper that it's kind of big, do a whole mind map, and then I'll take a photograph of it, and then from that sometimes I'll just break. But I'm definitely not super disciplined about. There's a lot of flow to what I do, and I also have learned of like having to be really nimble about things like that Burning Man thing. I mean, that was such a cool opportunity, but I had to drop another project to do that because I just knew I didn't want to do either of them, you know, in a half big way, you know. And so it's just being, but you know, that changed my plans of just being able to stay nimble. I feel like the thing that helps me do that is just staying with some kind of centering practice. And then I do I wouldn't say I'm not super disciplined, but I've been doing this kind of work for so long that it's really ingrained in me, you know, to do these kind of self-regulating things.
Hey there.
I've managed to not get into depression too much during this COVID thing. I mean, I actually feel like this has been a blessing in terms of me being able to spend more time on my own personal projects, which, you know, with 6R, when it comes to 6R, I feel like, oh my gosh, I got to give that my priority. But, you know, and there's definitely things I feel like that are more important than that are just my own personal projects, including a meditation app I'm working on that is specifically for helping. Well, it's a tour of etheric crystals all around the world and sacred spots around the world. With Google Earth Studio, lets me take their imagery and bring it into VR. And so I'll be able to do this thing where you kind of wormhole between these different places for meditation. And I feel like that is more of a service to humanity thing that's more important than my personal stuff.
Well, that's really neat. I see Nemo and Misha.
Yeah, so my question is, sorry, great talk, first of all. And second of all, the two partial questions. First of all, have you also thought of experimenting with augmented reality along with virtual reality? And then the second part of the question is, with the VR experience you're doing with the Greek gods and stuff like that, like I assume you're trying to be somewhat historical accuracy, but maybe there's some parts that you have to kind of make up as well. And also with that, will you hopefully be able to say, maybe incorporate more like interactivity in terms of like, hopefully get a way of like, maybe even like after like COVID, and you have a place to show this in its full breadth, like have a place where you could get a full haptic suit or something like that, so people can kind of like feel it even more like physically, not just visually, you know?
Oh my gosh. I would love to do it that way. That would be the ultimate next level of it. And well, but going back just to the first part, I'm absolutely planning to make it that this is a world, and it's established from the first scene that the historical characters are interacting with the gods and goddesses in our of each other and conspiring together all the time. And so I want it. So there's going to be involved in another blessing about the fact that those historians didn't have any interest in writing about a woman. I get to make up a whole bunch of this up because nobody bothered to write it down. And so I get to imagine, you know, these, you know, how this actually was. And so I feel like that's a wonderful level of creative freedom. And also I love the fact that, you know, it's a rare thing to have a project where the at least two of the are already somewhat household names, you know, so that kind of help. But I just love the idea of it's going to have a ton of interactivity, and how I imagine it just in the VR headset version. And I absolutely want to explore the fuller suit version, because here at the Pacific Science Center, there is a company called, oh my gosh, I always forget their name. I'm so sorry. Oh, but they have full haptic suits that you could walk around in so I know what, the potential of that. And yes, that would be the fullest version. And also the company I was mentioning, MoCap Now, they have now recently been bought by a company called StretchSense, which is a haptic company. So that is a very good, strong likelihood that we will do a VR version, and what are we going to call the haptic version? The full VR, the full immersion. But I absolutely wanted, I mean, that would be the absolute best way. So yes, please. And about AR, I'm so in love with immersion, that I know that my main passion is going to be there, but I do have appreciation for AR, and we teach students, we start with Spark AR, just to give them, that's like a good entry point. And for myself, I love playing, okay, you guys are going to laugh, I love playing with my favorite version of AR is makeup. I have a makeup actor that can do just like all kinds of trippy stuff, and I totally love it. So that is my favorite version of AR. But as far as the interactivity in Aspasia, I see things like that. You can have many choices within a scene, that you can just sit back and watch the scene, or you watch the scene first and then play again. And then there's ways where you can, like in the back, the Parthenon up on the hill, and you could hover over that. There'll like be a hotspot, and that will pop open, a new big, I don't know, some kind of screen telling you details about the Parthenon. And so, but there's ways to do it that when you walk in, and if you want to hit on one of those hot spots, it'll automatically pause the action. So you can stop and pause the action and then walk around and have some other, so you can do it as a learning thing and then go back to it. I want to make sure, I'm really interested too in the idea of having replayability, having a reason for somebody to come back again. And so I want to put as many layers of that in each scene.
Wonderful. Nemo, I see you have a question as well.
Thank you, Misha.
Thanks so much, Diana. I have a question about your thoughts about how diversity in terms of actors and performers might play into some of the things that you mentioned with VR. I know you were mentioning that the project you're planning to work on might be giving you opportunities that you wouldn't have as an older actor. That you're getting to be able to play with things that might not be provided to you if it wasn't for the VR space. I'm curious what your thoughts are about how that might extend to greater diversity in the performance space as it relates to age. And also from the motion capture side, if you have any thoughts about how weight fluctuation might play into that as well, because I know that is also one of those kind of hot button or contentious issues in the performing arts sphere. However, what I've heard from MoCap is that it really, really helps to have consistency of the subject throughout the duration of capture. So I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are about where you think things might go with that, and what opportunities you think might arise.
Well, I'm one of the things I'm dedicated to is continuing to see as much diversity, but also as many women, involved as and in all aspects of this. But the thing about motion capture too, with with things like weight fluctuation, that's something I haven't gotten to deal with myself, but I understand it though from like an actor's point of view. With my actors agency, I had to sign a thing saying I won't get tan, because you can't be different colors on different days. And so you have to commit that, okay, I'm going to make sure that I'm not going to do that. And so it would be similar, I think, then with having to do that with motion capture. But the thing about motion capture is you're still really just capturing the skeletal motions, and then whatever the skin you can put on it can be molded, so So I don't think that that's nearly as much of a problem as it would be in regular acting situations. And, you know, weight fluctuation. I mean, usually if you're, um, most projects you're involved in are not long enough for that to be noticeable. Um, but I guess there we one said where it was. I mean, I obviously there's TV shows where you can see where people's weight changes. But that's definitely over a longer period of time. But I also think maybe that, you know, that means the motion capture and the fact that any kind of skin can go on top of you, it means that it's more important that you have, you know, it'll be more important that you have the physical, you know, skills. And I think it might open the room more for dancers who may have been more sidelined, you know, like maybe they're going to get more appreciation and have an easier time moving into the acting space through motion capture. Because that is, I mean, it is amazing to watch a dancer in motion capture. But also the fact is that, you know, what they told me, you know, right off the bat, and what's so fascinating about it is that every single person has a unique way of moving. And so, but I love that, because that means that we will have more people, more different sizes, shapes, and ways of moving represented in VR. And I think that I'm not going to be alone in wanting to see that happen. And actually, I think there could be some more, in a way, a more egalitarian approach in VR, because you're not because you can shape things. It's not, your fluctuating weight, I don't think is going to matter as much in motion capture as it does in regular film.
I just have one follow-up for that, which is there's a big like discussion going on in the stunt industry about how the lack of female stunt performers, and especially the lack of stunt performers of color. And I mean, I'm not incredibly knowledgeable about everybody that's working in motion capture right now, but it seems to be predominantly male. Do you think there's a movement as VR gets more developed, there will be a movement towards having more female performers or more performers with diversity? And do you know if there's any initiatives right now to actually make that happen and to move away from how things have been historically?
Wow, that's a great question. And I think I did meet a woman who came to Women in Film, who was a female stunt person, who told us like what it is to be in that realm as a female. And she's someone I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of her, because if there is such an initiative, she would be the one who would know it. But I think that that because motion capture is so fine-tuned to the movement, they have to get females, dress men up like women, like they do in movies, put fake boobs on them, you know. I mean, in motion capture, you're going to have female movement, and men and women do move differently. So I think off the bat that nobody who is funding a motion capture project is going to be okay with a male playing a female part. I think it's going to be insisted upon that, you know, that ends the female only stunt thing, motion capture, because you cannot fake physiology to that degree. So I hope that's very hopeful, and I didn't thought about that before. And Nemo, I promise to see if I can find out if there is, if I can find that lady and track her down and see if she knows anything about an initiative like that, because if there isn't one, there should be.
Thanks so much. Jeffrey. You're muted right now.
There we go. First of all, thank you so much, Diana, for sharing all this today. It's been really informative. And one thing that I found really inspiring was hearing you talk about just the massive shift that's going to happen, especially on the talent front, and touching on the need for more folks to know Unreal. I forgot the other name of the engine.
Unity.
Thank you. My inexperience is showing. But my question behind that, as this huge movement starts to grow and grow and grow, what other roles and what other needs are really going to start to bubble up in terms of the talent side? And what are some things that people that are interested in taking part of this movement can really do to start getting ahead on that, or just feeding their interest as well?
Well, that's a wonderful question. Thank you, Jeffrey. Well, I think that one of the big boom areas that is just beginning is 360 audio, and that is a specialty, spatial audio. And I just got my first, woo, I'm so excited. Zoom makes I guess it's not binaural. It's I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's got four little microphone heads. And so I'm just starting to play with that myself, but that is going to be a complete specialty all its own, as well as artwork, people who make creatures, you know, I mean, people who are the artists who can do, like one of our dear friends, David Fouetre, he's from France, and I think he's there now, but we met him, he was in Vancouver. He was part of the Vancouver VR world. He's the one who brought the Hammer and Tong guys down to do VR with us, and he was one of our original board members. But he had worked on Avatar, and his specialty was work on fur. Like, he was really good with hair and fur. That is a specialty within a specialty, you know? And so I think all of that's going to be even more so in VR. So any digital art that exists now in 2D is going to exist in 3D, and well, it already does in 3D, but that's why I think it's so exciting. Like, any specialty within regular filmmaking is needed in VR. So there's just a whole new world of opportunities, and I just, from what I've seen so far, and I really hope this is happening in Vancouver too. The VR world is a much more inclusive space for people of color and women. I mean, it's just automatically every single event that I've been to, it's been I wouldn't say it's been 50-50, but it's been a lot closer than in anything else I've seen. And so I feel like that it's going to be hopefully more welcoming, a more welcoming world. Like, also for Nemo saying, like, I feel like for stunt people to then become motion capture, well, obviously that's a natural marriage, but again, I think that motion capture in VR is just going to open up so much more for female performers. They just, by necessity, because you just can't fake it, like they do in flatty film. You can see how I don't mean to sound so derogatory, but it just seems so pointless to me now.
So wonderful.
Or unambitious. How about that?
Thank you again so much, Diana, for taking the time to talk with us all. I'm looking forward to our next conversation, and to next time we get to play together. If you're watching and you're interested in any of the pieces we've been talking about, check down in the links. There's going to be all kinds of links to a bunch of the different projects, pitch decks, various things that we've been talking about throughout this. And tune in next time as well. Thank you again.